Hi, and welcome to the legislative update from Child Care Aware of Minnesota for Tuesday, March 25th. This is for activity from the week of March 17th to the 21st. So, a lot of activity in the last week. We see a lot of committee hearings with bills from our child care and early childhood community picking up. Uh, Partially because the April 4th deadline is looming. So all bills that have been introduced need to be heard in both the House and the Senate committee to which they were referred by Friday, April 4th. So 2 weeks left. We can anticipate that the pace will only quicken. This week, there were several, as I said, I'll get into a few of those, and we are also starting to see many of the governor's bills being introduced and heard. So some of those will, of course, blend with some of the bills introduced by individual legislators and eventually lead their way into some of the omnibus bills. So I will jump right in. This last week, the Children and Families Committee heard several bills. Two of them, House File 1581 and 1158, both carried by Representative Hicks, have to do with funding. One's more about funding, one's more about modifications, but they both are related to the diaper distribution grant program. And you'll start to see a theme here. Many of the requests that have been heard recently are for programs that were funded initially with one-time money, and they are coming back to ask for an extension or additional funds or continuing funds for their work. So the diaper distribution grant, the diaper distribution bank has been one of those programs. And those both were laid over for consideration in the omnibus bill. House File 2226, sponsored by Representative West. This deals with background studies and really frankly, a loophole that exists right now in that the Bureau of Criminal Affairs has certain information that they cannot, as current statute stands, share with the Department of Human Services. So when background checks are conducted, the only thing the background check will catch is if somebody has actually been convicted for a crime, whereas the BCA sometimes has information about people who are being investigated for a crime. And in particular, this was a very difficult hearing talking about a perpetrator of a sexual offense who had been under investigation. The state knew that through the BCA, could not necessarily share that information. He ended up working in some childcare centers and indeed was arrested for child pornography. This made a lot of news a while back. So trying to fix that, I guess, loophole for lack of a better term, and see if we can better connect the information that exists in various parts of the state when it comes to background checks. So that bill was heard and re-referred to the Committee on Judiciary, and we will continue to track its progress. In the Senate Economic Development and Jobs Committee, Women Venture came back in asking for an expansion of their grant. Again, has been funded in the past. This time they are looking to increase not only their childcare work, but other areas such as food and agriculture. Women Venture helps new women entrepreneurs open businesses. So in that respect, childcare, family childcare, it fits into that category. And this is a request for $8 million for workforce development across multiple settings, as I said. That was laid over for consideration in the Omnibus Jobs and Economic Development Bill. On the Senate side, the Health and Human Services Committee took up several related bills this week. Senate File 1049, carried by Senator May Quaid. This is funding to keep the early learning scholarships going at their current level. The Early Learning Scholarship Fund received a very large increase last year or 2 years ago rather, with one-time funding that is set to cut quite significantly. And so this is a request to keep that funding at its current level into the next biennium. And that was laid over for consideration. Senate File 1897, Senator Kupek. This was the funding for the child care improvement grants, and those are grants currently allocated by First Children's Finance. Again, something that started during the 2023 session, or prior to that actually, with federal funding, and had a little bit of money last year, but these are those grants that sort of fall between these small grants that, for instance, Child Care Resource and Referral or Child Care Aware can give, 2.5, and the very large grants that are systemic that go out from deed. These are grants for facility improvements that have been very popular. And so that is a $2.5 million request that was laid over. And then Senator Bolden carried Senate File 1013, which is a request for some additional Head Start funding. That would be a request for $15 million per year for each of the next 2 years of the biennium. Because particularly some of the concerns about what might happen with Head Start funding federally, in addition to just the growing need, as always, for the Head Start program, that request was made and again laid over for consideration. So 3 funding related bills heard in the Senate HHS committee last week. Finally, in the House Tax Committee, we had House File 2254, Representative Hansen, and this is a baby bonus established that would be established within the Minnesota Child Credit. So basically another $400 that a family could get on top of their child tax credit in the first year of a baby's birth. So another nod to just trying to find ways to help parents cover all the expenses related to having small children. So those were the bills. I believe those were 8 bills last week. Hold on, because next week, as of this count, we have up to nearly 25 bills getting heard. So as I said, not surprising with the deadline looming. Some of those this coming week are companions to the bills I just read to you. Others are new, but they will be racing to finish by April 4th any bill that's going to keep moving in the House or Senate. After that, we will be watching to see the omnibus bills that will be created. So the following week after April 4th, up through April 11th, will be the really big week for creating finance bills or omnibus bills. And at that point, after that, the legislature takes a week-long break. So anticipate that we will do a written report at that point because it becomes a lot to talk about on these 7-minute videos. But that's what we have for this week for now. And please, once again, always come to our website and check our bill tracker. And any of the bills that have been introduced in the last week will be added to that. And if they've had action, I'll report on them here. Otherwise, you can at least see what has been introduced and may show up in the next couple of weeks. So thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next week.